Thank you, Mark. Hello, everybody. Here I am in a different hat. I think this talk is called the Godless Congregation in the brochure. But I was thinking it could be called Be Careful What You Wish For, actually. Because when Jonathan was talking, I was thinking, well, this was realization as manifestation, actually. So that I've realised I've been asked to speak as a case study for you all. So let me just, I'm only going to speak for a short time, actually, and like Giles said also, attack me at lunchtime if you wish. I've also asked Liz Slade, who worked for Sunday Assembly for a long time, to sort of be my, not sense checker, but fact checker, because I consider myself an unreliable witness. As I was very emotionally and heavily involved in Sunday Assembly. So some of what I say may not be true to someone else. So Sunday Assembly was an idea that two comedians had one day while driving to a gig in Bath, where the two of us were going off to be funny in front of a load of people, and myself and my co-founder, Sanderson Jones. And I always like to point out that I was headlining and I was giving him a lift. We were talking about my wedding, actually. We were talking about my wedding and how my mother had wanted me to have a church wedding, but my husband was very against us having a church wedding. I consider myself to be agnostic, would be the best way, but even that word I still struggle with itself. But my mum wanted to get me married in a church that I knew, so I kind of felt like, well, that might be okay. My husband would not do that. So we had to figure out how to get married in a way that would sort of speak to tradition, but also speak to what we are as a couple. And so we ended up getting married in an old-time music hall. So we had an aisle. The improvised musical I'm in sang me down the aisle with an improvised choral song that sounded like a hymn, but without any words. And we had, instead of a hymn for everybody to sing, we all sang When I'm 64. And I was talking about what wonderful it was to see everybody feeling familiar, but yet seeing something different and speaking to this tradition. And then we started saying, well, wouldn't it be great if we had a church for people who didn't believe in God? And we went, yeah, that would be a great idea. And then we decided that we would actually do it. We would try and create church for people who don't believe in God. So in January 2013, we did the first Sunday Assembly. We put 40 chairs out in an old church, and over 200 people turned up on that Sunday, of which we recognised about 20. Anyone who's ever put on a show or done anything knows that generally your audience is your parents, your friends, someone you recognise the majority of them. So in fact, in that moment, to see all these people from all these different walks of life having gathered in this space for what had been dubbed the atheist church was amazing, and at the same time completely terrifying, because in that moment I recognized that we might have unleashed something that we really didn't know what to do with. So there was something very beautiful about that naivety, actually, something very beautiful that we decided to do that, and we went, well, let's try it, let's make it happen. But there was also something profoundly dangerous about the fact that we decided to welcome over 200 people into a space and say, essentially, we will hold you, because we didn't actually know what it was we were about to hold. I'm speaking about Sunday Assembly, and I just want to just sort of do a little side check that Sunday Assembly still exists, actually. It still runs, and I left 3 years ago. So I'm sort of talking about it as a concept, as it were, rather than what it is now, because what it is now I don't know, because I left. So I just wanted to just put that out there, because I don't want to dismiss Sunday Assembly, and I think that's why I've avoided talking about it for a long time. It's because it's really complicated, because it is in many ways a great success, and in many ways a terrible failure. And that is true of anything, isn't it? That all successes contain failure. So I just wanted to sort of talk about what we did wrong in a way of sort of learning, really, because again, it took a long time to find what we did wrong. Let me start with the great stuff. The great stuff was we created community. So that's what people found. They found a space where they could talk to people. They found a place where they could come in and they would be welcomed. We had a motto, live better, help often, wonder more. People could really get to that. People could see themselves in that. We put on amazing events, absolutely amazing. People were so charmed by what we did. We would sing songs instead of hymns. We would have an interesting talk instead of I was about to say monologue, but I'm doing too much acting. What's the? Thank you, everybody. We'd have a poem instead of a reading, and we would have a moment of silence where we all reflected. So it was, and it was run by 2 comedians. So of course it was great, and I can sing, and I could put band together. So it was a show. It was a brilliant show, and we started calling it Inspitainment, which sounds sort of wrong, but actually was very right. Actually, it really was something. We were trying to be inspiring, but then people started contacting us saying, "We want a Sunday assembly where we are. Well, how can we have one?" So we started trying to figure out how we could possibly share this information with people. So we started putting together packs how to put on your own Sunday assembly. Essentially, within 2 months, we'd started handing out packs of how to do this before we even really knew what it was, actually. So we were saying, well, you just need to find this. And so after 6 months, we did a tour called 40 Dates and 40 Nights. Where we toured around the world, starting Sunday assemblies in different places. I mean, it really had gone absolutely massive. But at this time, I felt this pull because I was also working as a stand-up comedian. And I was also in this Showstopper the Improvised Musical. So my life was these 3 Venn diagram circles that were just going further and further apart from each other in terms of what they were, but getting bigger as they grew. So this Sunday assembly circle just appeared, and suddenly I was having to be part of this congregation, but not really be able to give my attention to it. So that was another. Can I actually give my full attention to this? Well, no, because I'm sort of over here and I'm over here. I went to the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and I was there doing a show, and I was in a big gala show, and then I was trying to start the first Sunday assembly in Melbourne. So you can just, even the way I'm talking, the attention just wasn't with it. The attention that it needed wasn't with it. We did a great event called You'll Rock. We reinvented Christmas so that there was something for people to go to, because people's, again, biggest sadnesses was we could no longer go to carol concerts because we felt it wasn't right to sing carols. Well, let's create something else then. So we created this You'll Rock where we sang all the Christmas songs that everybody knows from, the shops. But again, we'd have a really inspiring talk and people would leave uplifted, like, oh, I recognise why I'm doing Christmas again. I recognise what this is. It is a ritual. So it really was speaking to tradition and speaking to something. But what we were really lacking was the depth and the ability to go deep. And that was our own fault, because we wrote into the constitution of Sunday Assembly, which we had to have to get charitable funding. So we come back to funding and how sometimes these things actually strangle us. Was we will not talk about religion and we will not talk about politics because it's dividing. And so in that moment, what we actually did was stopped ourselves from being able to actually address the spiritual, because we weren't even able to talk about it. And we decided instead to find this sort of utopia, a false utopia, where everybody just gets along and talks about things that they can vaguely agree with, rather than challenging and grappling. And like Liz said, that community is messy and ugly and painful as much as it is beautiful and connecting. And we weren't willing to accept that, actually. We weren't willing to accept the difficulty of it. We were also seduced by our own success. Completely. We were seduced by the fact we were in all the papers. We were seduced by the fact people said this is big and sexy and that everyone wanted to interview us. And we were on the cover of a million things. And that was wonderful because it spoke to our ego. But it actually meant we lost sight of what we were actually trying to do, and ended up trying to scale something that actually was really a name and a show. And because it wasn't challenging, we invited everybody in the tenets. It said, you're welcome to come as you are. Anyone is welcome. You can come as you are. and in no way will we challenge you, essentially, is what we were saying. And my friend who runs a church said, oh yes, we have something similar at our church. It says, you are welcome as you are, but you must be willing to change. And I thought that was the bit that we missed of the end of the sentence. So it became really a social club for the middle classes. That is not to say that it was not a success, because the crisis we ended up working with was loneliness. We thought we were doing something spiritual, and maybe it was spiritual in one sense, but what we really did start to address was loneliness and people in cities needing somewhere to go. So not to underestimate what we did end up doing, but to look at why we didn't achieve what we were actually thought we were trying to achieve. I don't know if you know the film Ghostbusters 2, but in Ghostbusters 2, they open a manhole and reveal this river of slime that is full of the hate of New York City. And they don't know what to do because by opening this manhole, they now know it, and now they will have to deal with it. And what I felt like Sunday Assembly did was open the manhole that revealed a complete look in, a reveal to the loneliness of what it is to be in a city, and the loneliness of what it is to be a human. And also the loneliness of what it is to not be able to talk about spirituality, because none of us would talk about spirituality because we were scared of that word. And I had come from a church background, and I did want to talk about God, and I did want to talk about what it was that I was missing. There's that great line, I'm sure, Jonathan, you'll tell me who said it, that God is, I don't believe in God, but boy, do I miss him. Yeah. And that really spoke to me the first time I heard that. But we weren't addressing that, and perhaps that's something we should have done. The song that we opened Sunday Assembly with was Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. Everybody singing Don't Stop Me Now. But if you actually think about what that first line is, it's don't stop me now, I'm having such a good time. And perhaps everything can be read into that line. And I'll just leave you with something a friend of mine said, which really shook me to my core. When she was challenged about, she worked with refugees, and she was challenged. They said to her, why do you bring these people into this country? They're dangerous, they destroy things, they kill. And she looked them in the eye and said, there is nothing in this country more dangerous than the comfortable middle class. And it frightened me that perhaps, in a way, we had helped be that comfortable middle class. So maybe my question is to us, how can we make sure that we don't become that comfortable middle class? Thank you.